A late tackle, a late bit of transfer business, a late winner. We all love some late action. So here we are finally. And all I can say is we got here as quickly as we could with a brand new intro. I am still Ruairi. It's great to be back. And I am joined by my new good friend,
Adam. So hi everyone, how are you? As you can tell by my voice, I'm so excited to be joining Ruairi for this new adventure. But Ruairi, more importantly, how are you doing as well?
I am pretty good. I want to firstly apologize if there's any audio issues or any audio differences to the normal service. I'm currently in what I think is the accommodation for a boarding school every other day of the year, as I am still at summer camp. So I'm on my crappy little headphones on hopefully Wi-Fi that's going to hold. No students should be in the building, so I should have the Wi-Fi all to myself. So fingers crossed. But I'm good. A little bit tired, but getting towards the end. And football is back to distract me and to keep me entertained. So it's all good. Adam, how are you?
Mate, I am absolutely refreshed. As people who do follow me, they've probably seen on my Instagram, I've had a really good break, holiday, more importantly. But more to the point, I think I'm just looking forward to this new season with you and obviously Andy. We're talking lots of football again, which is great. But Rory, let's get the elephant out of the room as well, because there is something we have to announce to our listeners and those viewing as well.
Yeah, it's kind of not particularly happy news. So we were excited at the beginning of the season with obviously yourself and Andy joining the pod. But unfortunately, Tommi has had to leave the pod. It's kind of personal reasons, personal issues have arisen, and he's not able to continue. Obviously, we are all absolutely gutted that he's not going to be able to continue with us. Hopefully, he'll be able to pop on a few times and see where he can squeeze us in. Before we kind of get on with the rest of the show, I just want to say without Tommi, this would not have started. So I want to say thanks to him. It was his idea. It was our conversations, our endless conversations about football that led us to this point. This podcast got me through rough times during COVID. It got me through rough times in general. And I think, without Tommi, none of this would have happened. So I'm gutted he's not going to be with us, as we all are, I think. But we will battle on bravely, and hopefully he will show his face down the line somewhere. I'm sure he won't be able to resist coming back at some point, I think.
He's got to, hasn't he? He's got to.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Anyway, Rory, let's start off because we have got a bump episode for our listeners, haven't we, to be fair? So we might as well start off by talking about the Premier League. And let's start off by talking about your beloved Arsenal, right? So it wouldn't be the Premier League without Arsenal kicking off this whole campaign. And boy, did you get off to a good start.
I am just delighted that Sky Sports didn't get what they wanted. Sky Sports massively wanted a repeat of the Brentford game. And I thought this is like a huge mental test for that Arsenal squad. I think like for a big first game, I don't know why. Well, I know why, but they had to pick Arsenal Friday night again. And for the team that started, most of that team a lot of that team did start against Brentford, although not a lot of them, but a few of them. Yeah. And I think there was still those mental scars. You can see in the All or Nothing that we're going to talk about in some special episodes, how much that affected the squad and how much of a test that was for them to get through. So I think this Palace game was huge, as we saw, and as we knew from last season. I think Selhurst Park is one of the best atmospheres in the league, if not the best atmosphere in the league. It's one of the hardest stadiums to go to. They are a crazy, exciting team and really talented, and they are going to beat a lot of teams by a lot this season. But I was really impressed by how mature Arsenal were. We absolutely dominated the first, you could say, 40 minutes. Towards the second half, we took our foot off the gas in classic Arsenal style and put ourselves under pressure unnecessarily, because old habits die hard. But we made it to the first half, then a late winner to make it 2-0. I was just really, really, really excited by this performance. The summer in general, I think, has been fantastic. Zinchenko is such a huge signing. Such a huge signing. I was so glad that we got him. I think he just adds a bit of not only the versatility, but his maturity, his calmness, his technical ability. You could just see towards the end he was struggling, and we had the depth to bring on Kieran Tierney. We've got squad depth again. And then Jesus up front for the first half hour was just an absolute handful. I think it was a really, really important positive start for Arsenal. And we've got a run of games now that, touch wood, we should be doing okay in. And the squad now looks quite healthy. And we're looking like there's still a few areas that need addressing, but a very, very exciting start. What did you make of the performance?
Yeah, I was going to allude to Zinchenko, really. I think that performance was really all about him and what he brought to that team in particular, because I felt like with Arsenal, there's always been those kind of jitters, maybe nervousness with that squad, especially for the first game of the season as well. There would have been a lot of pressure on those players. And as we've seen in All or Nothing so far, I think something that we take for granted is they are young players who... Yeah. Some of them need confidence, some of them need the mentality. And that's where maybe bringing in someone like Zinchenko, he brings that maturity, brings that kind of know-how in those sort of game positions where you need to be calm, you need to just take it in a bit more. And I think he's going to be a blessing for you guys in terms of a great signing, great value. I mean, to be honest, that should have been like 50 mil, not 30 mil. I just think for what you do. It's interesting, though, I'll put it to you. A lot of commentary that I've heard since that first game of the season seems to be around Zinchenko's not the natural left back, but he can fill in, right? But when Tierney is back, do you see Zinchenko being part of the Arsenal midfield, or do you think he's going to be one of those that's rotated for games?
I think it's quite interesting. I think he could almost play the Xhaka role. I think because Xhaka plays that left side midfield and tucks in at left back in order for Tierney to bomb on. And I think Zinchenko is literally born for that role. Yeah. So I think we will see, so that Xhaka doesn't have to play every minute of every game. And when he inevitably gets suspended for 5 games, there'll be someone to fill in. I think we will see Zinchenko in midfield more. I think that means that we won't potentially get another midfielder. I think we're focusing on a winger because Zinchenko will be able to fill in. I still think we'll make a move for Tielemans, but I think Zinchenko, his versatility is just huge. And we've seen in Arteta's system, players often need to be able to play multiple positions. Ben White played right back against Zaha, one of the best wingers in the league, and had the most successful tackles of anyone in the Premier League this weekend. So I think the players he's got are versatile, and they have to be versatile. But there's one player that I can't believe I've not mentioned yet, and he's not even a new signing. But in the classic Arsene Wenger, he feels like a new signing. William Saliba. I am absolutely in love with him already. I think this is a player that at times I thought, is he worth the hassle? There was some personal issues that were out of his control, but there was a lot of like disciplinary issues. There was a lot of talk around, is he going to leave? Does he want to play for the club? I think a lot of it, all of it was just media noise. From what I've seen, he's an Arsenal fan from when he was a kid. He went out on loan at Marseille and got voted the Young Player of the Year in Ligue 1, which people can slag off that league, but that league produces the most like young talent in the world. Like all the players you're looking at in big clubs, most of them came from Ligue 1. Exactly. So he got the Young Player of the Year. He comes in and finally, after 3 years, makes his debut and gets man of the match. And without him, we do not win that game. He was absolutely flawless. His passing, his timing in the tackle on Zaha, where he was trying to get a penalty, that is dangerous to go to ground there, and he executed it perfectly. I was so happy that it went well, because he's a player that, listening to Arsenal podcasts, he's just been constantly there, Saliba. And to finally see him for him to smash it was unbelievable. So I think I was so excited about him. I think Gabriel had a shaky game, but I think Saliba and him could form like quite a good partnership.
Definitely. It feels like there's a solid base going on there. And since our recording on YouTube, so for those that don't know, we did a predictor series on clubs, their thoughts. We did it at the end of June, it was. And that was still early because Gabriel Jesus hadn't even signed then. So that shows you how long ago that was recorded. But just to wrap it up, what do you think Arsenal need to do in the next few weeks of this window? Do they need to strengthen any further, or do you feel confident with this squad now?
I would still like Tielemans. I would still like another midfielder, someone who's a bit more, his passing is he has a wider passing range than Xhaka. I think he's a bit more dynamic. I do like Xhaka as a player. As a person, I have issues with him. But I think as a player, I think he is massively underrated. And he got booked for diving, and Zaha did not get booked for diving. And it's a classic because Xhaka gets booked for everything. But anyway, I think we still need cover for him. And I think we need another winger I like Nicola Pepe, but not often enough.
Yeah.
I think he has flashes, but if we can get him gone, and we've been linked with Yeremy Pino from Villarreal, which would be an unbelievable move, I think. So I think our business still isn't done, and we still need to get rid of some players. I think getting rid of Torreira is huge. What's his name? Mari has just gone to Udinese. No, Monza, right? We're going to talk about that
Monza,
later.
Yeah.
So I think most of our business is going to be selling, but we could bring in one or two more. But even looking at the squad now, I think if you look at the first game of this season, the first game of last season, the difference is insane.
Yes, it has been quite fast. And just a quick word on Crystal Palace. They've sold Benteke. Do we feel we're a bit worried by the fact that they haven't got anyone lined up by the look of things? I mean, yeah, it's a strange one. I didn't think he'd be leaving Crystal Palace personally, but yeah, I mean, from what I've read from a lot of Crystal Palace fans, they're actually excited by the fact of maybe Zaha through the middle. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I thought we'd see more of a lean towards Odsonne Edouard. Like, he was so good at Celtic, and I think in flashes last season he was decent. I remember when he came on for his debut, he scored a brace within like 2 minutes, right? Yeah. I think like he's a player that definitely has ability. I think we might see a move towards him more often. And I think Zaha down the middle could actually be really interesting. I do not worry about Palace. That squad is so exciting. Yeah. I think like even Bereze, I could just watch him forever. Honestly, I could just
love him.
Just on YouTube clips of him forever, just running with the ball. He's just a beautiful player to watch. Michael Elise, they're like very quickly becoming my favorite team that aren't Arsenal in the league to watch. Because just that team, that, and even I want to get the name. Ebuele.
Yeah.
He came on late against Arsenal and caused us, like, it's a good job we had Tierney, because at that point I think Zinchenko would have been struggling. He was unbelievable when he came on as well. So I think they're just full of exciting talent. And Joachim Anderson at the back, we could not handle his passing at all. His passing was unbelievable. So I think Vieira's got them playing great football. They've got a great team. I think we could see them push a little bit further than they did last year. I hope so.
Certainly. Anyway, we as viewers will see, we can't be joined by Andy for this particular podcast, but he has left us with some thoughts about Man United, in particular about that game at Brighton.
Hello there, lads. Just thought share a few of my thoughts regarding the game at the weekend. So yeah, obviously United played Brighton, and much like last season, we got thoroughly done over. So yeah, obviously going into this first game of the season, there was a fair bit of optimism. We'd had a reasonably good pre-season. We've obviously strengthened in terms of Martinez at centre back, Ericsson, Tara Malaysia is on the bench. So yeah, I think there was a bit of optimism going into the new season. I think. Obviously, there has been a bit of a backdrop, which was unwanted. Obviously, Ronaldo has made it clear he wants to leave. He's not really trained during pre-season, so he was on the bench. I think what was disappointing is that we're going into another season in which Fred and McTominay are the starting centre midfield pair. I think they've both got their assets, things that they do well, but I think as a collective, I don't think they're good enough to be part of like a top four midfield going forward. And I think it showed in the game, to be perfectly frank. There was, we got passed through the lines a bit too easily, leaving the defence with little protection. I thought Martinez had a bit of a shaky debut, could have very, very easily conceded the penalty that should have been given. We looked all right in the second half. I kept possession quite well, and you can certainly see what it contributes on the attacking third of the pitch as well. So I think that'd be an asset. But Maguire was actually reasonably solid. I think his lack of pace probably lets him down sometimes, but other than that, he didn't really make any glaring errors. But I thought the awareness of Shaw and Dalot in defensive positions is absolutely shocking. And I think the experiment of having Christian Eriksen as a false nine wasn't a great one. I think the fact that we're obviously with Martial and Ronaldo as effectively our only sort of proper strikers, maybe Rashford at a stretch, it's disappointing. So yeah, and I think a lot of the confidence issues are still there from last season. Marcus Rashford is the absolute shadow of the player that he was. Whether he can get that form back under Ten Hag remains to be seen, and I really hope as a fan he does. But the first game certainly wasn't promising from that point of view. I think a key moment for that was that he was put through by Ronaldo one-on-one, and you just kind of knew he wasn't going to stick it in the back of the net, even if it was a good save by Robert Sanchez. But you've got to give credit to Brighton. They played really, really well. Moises Caicedo, McAllister, Pascal Grob. They ran rings around the midfield, certainly attacking. They played really well. Danny Welbeck. He gave us a really, really hard time. They gave Martinez a real test, to be fair. Really good at holding the ball up. So, to be fair, they were more than good enough value for the win. And hopefully performances improve next time.
So, Rory, we've had the thoughts of Andy on particularly Man United. Should we just start by bantering about this club, or where do we want to start with this club? Because I thought we were so over delicious. This. I thought this was like a transition period. I thought, Ten Hag, positive appointment. And then you hear, even after the Brighton match, who they're trying to sign, which is just crazy. But let's just start by talking about the match itself. I mean, given the amount of time that Ten Hag had with Man United, are you surprised there's a lack of identity in the way they're playing?
It's weird, isn't it? Before the game, I piled money on Brighton to win. I won quite a bit of money off it. So cheers, Brighton. I piled money on Brighton to win because I thought that it's only going one way. But I did expect more from United. I expected more of a difference in style. I expected to see a form of identity, a form of okay, this is what they've been working on all summer. I think it was summed up by the video that came out after the game of David De Gea having to tell Harry Maguire which side of the tunnel they line up on. That is, I think I put it on our Twitter page as Google, show me the opposite of intimidating an opponent. At that point, Brighton must have just been okay, boys, just wait. They will implode and we'll get the goal. And that's what happened. Brighton were fantastic. Don't get me wrong. I like where I am. I'm in Eastbourne and working with a lot of Brighton fans, and they get annoyed that it's always United were crap. Brighton were very, very good. Let's say that straight away. Caicedo in midfield was unbelievable.
Insane.
Danny Welbeck was peak Danny Welbeck. He was amazing. But for United, that midfield is beyond a joke now. I think McTominay, how he doesn't get sent off, it's a classic, and I'm going to keep banging this drum. If that was Xhaka, he's banned for 5 games. That tackle was horrific. And he got that from having possession. He had possession running up the pitch, and he ended that move by nearly breaking someone's leg. That midfield with Fred included was absolutely non-existent. I think Rashford, he needs a holiday. He needs a psychologist. He needs something. He is not the player he used to be. Sancho, not enough people are talking about how big a flop that guy's been. We're still hearing about Nicola Pepe, and Sancho was more and has been worse. I think there's just a lot to unpick at United. The squad is only one of the issues. It's a big issue, but it's only one of the issues. What we've seen in the last week has been highlighted more is that it's the owners, right? And it's the staff up top. If they think, as you alluded to, that Arnautovic and Rabiot are the answer, I don't know what the question is. Because Juve fans are pushing Rabiot.
They are laughing, aren't they? They're absolutely loving this. And I heard on another podcast, potentially McTominay might be offered as a swap exchange at this stage with Rabiot, which I think they're not even liking that prospect if it goes to that, because they'd rather keep Rabiot. But
we'll just take less money, just keep McTominay. It's fine. And Rabiot's a weird one because not only is he a player that had some of the worst passing statistics in Serie A last year, he's also someone whose mother completely explodes his career every 2 years. So when France were knocked out of the World Cup, that way was his mum who blamed everyone except her son for them getting eliminated. It's the reason why nobody at Juventus wants him there anymore, apart from the fact that he's had terrible form. He's another player that just brings more problems than he's worth. I'm half expecting United to be linked to Icardi next, if you know what I mean. Let's just complete the set.
We did banter in our WhatsApp group that a certain Alvaro Morata has been linked since, so the money laundering scheme continues. But
that'll be another 60 million.
It's not promising at the moment, but let's give, like you've said, credit to Brighton, because Pascal Gross as well, another name of a player that did really well. He's gone under the radar for me for the last 2 to 3 seasons. There's no reason why, but he was phenomenal. And again, I can see him making strides this season, potentially getting into that German national squad right now and really making a name for himself. But what was interesting for me, I think, at the start of the season, I didn't feel like Brighton were there in terms of personnel. I felt like they needed like 3 or 4 signings. But Potter, that was a masterclass. What he actually showed was probably what Ten Hag wants to achieve with Man United. So basically what you saw on Sunday was what Man United are trying to achieve versus someone like Brighton, who are giving a chance to a young coach, being patient, but more importantly, giving trust to those players, which, I mean, let's talk about the Man United rebuilds. That is going to take a decade. I'm going to put it out there. I think this is going to be at least a decade. I mean, there's so many fans that seem to have this thought of Man United will be in the top 4 this season. Don't worry, we'll get a few signings. Ten Hag will get them playing. No, this is going to take a number of windows to fix. And this is like just the rotten core. Like you said, it stems from above. But ultimately, if Ten Hag's come in and everyone thought he would change it round, actually, you're seeing flaws across the pitch. I mean, I was surprised to see the back 4 being the same as last season. I don't know about you, but for me, why is Luke Shaw there? There's no form there. Maguire, I mean, he's just banter FC. He's
someone else who needs a psychology. That I think there's a thing of, and now my girlfriend is not hugely into football, but she's had to be since we started living together. And I remember a few years ago when we got together, she said every time she watched the Arsenal team, she was like, "These need someone to talk to. They need someone to sit down and talk to them and tell them that they're athletes and remind them that, like," she's like, "you can just see their mentality is nowhere." And I feel like that's where United are now. There's so many of those players where the mentality is just the second you can see that goal, the head goes down. Oh, here we go. It's another day. It's going to be like this. We know we've seen this before. And you could see the second Brighton got that first goal, even when United fluked the kind of the consolation. I was like, they're not getting another one. Like they haven't got the belief in themselves to get it. And I think it's also interesting with Brighton and United because you've got 2 teams that are almost, in terms of recruitment, the polar opposite. Like Brighton, they've now got money from the Cucurella sale, right? I'm really intrigued to see where that money's going to go and who they're going to bring in. I'm excited to see who they're going to bring in. United have just spent 60 million or whatever it is on Lisandro Martinez. Arsenal decided he was only worth 35 and ducked out. I'm not judging him off one game, but I don't think he's a £60 million player. I think there's a reason why not everyone was after him. Also, they've gone for a manager who hasn't had to build teams. He's had teams given to him. The whole Ajax thing is that you have a director of football who buys players. You have the youth system that bring players through, and you have to get them to play the best that they can. Ten Hag is now being trusted to build a team. Again, it's like United, even picking the manager, they've recruited badly. Like they've not thought, they've just gone, he is a big name in Europe who everybody's talking about. Let's just get him. He'll fix our problems. Whereas what they should have done is got Poch a few years ago, or they should have got Graham Potter and handed him over the thing. If you know what I mean, I think it's just bad recruitment again. And until there's changes in staff and ownership, I can't see it getting any better for United. I'm sorry, United fans. I'm enjoying it as an Arsenal fan, but as a football fan, I don't like seeing a big club being badly run. Like, because a team like that should be achieving more. They should be achieving so much more, and those players should be achieving more.
Definitely. And Andy's kind of reflected on our group that he's not looking forward to the Liverpool game because that could be the kind of moment that kind of decides how this season actually is played out. Because if they don't even, like, I think what we saw even under Ragnick was there was no passion, there was no desire in those games. So if they don't show it, then that's going to be the telltale sign of how this season's going to go. Anyway, Rory, just wrapping up for time. Let's talk about All or Nothing. So we're kind of 3 episodes deep at the moment. What's your early impression so far of All or Nothing on Arsenal?
I've really enjoyed it. I think I was like, you're always expecting the memes and the jokes and and that's part of the fun as well. Like, oh, you're on Twitter afterwards. But I think actually Arteta's come out of it really well. I think he's come out of it really well. And you can see, as an Arsenal fan, you can see that he cares as much as we do. Like, you can say anything about his tactical naivety, about team selection, about his ego. What is patently clear is that all he wants to do is achieve something with Arsenal, and that's something I can get behind. I've fallen in love with the players even more. Players like Saka and Smith Rowe and Ramsdale, who they've obviously focused on. Nuno Tavares was like this surprise, like human story that came out and just made me like just absolutely fall in love with him. I still think there's a player there. He's going to come back from Marseille, and we're going to have a decent player there. I think we're going to do some special episodes, kind of breaking down in detail. But so far, I'm really impressed with Arteta. I've already ordered the T-shirt which has Arteta's drawing from before the Tottenham game, and that is going to be waiting for me when I get back to my home in Crewe. I've already ordered that. I absolutely love it. I think I've watched the first episode twice now, so I'm on my second way around for the first 3 episodes. Like proper studying it, but I really, really enjoy it. Like, what were your impressions of it?
For me, I mean, it's clear to see that Arteta has a bright mind in terms of how he's trying to get his philosophies across, different ways of thinking, which is probably what Arsenal needed. It seems like there's been a systemic abuse, should we call it, whereby it's been stagnating over time. But one of the questions I was going to put to you is around Arteta, is that although I've only seen up to episode 3 right now, it feels like he's taking a lot of the pressure on his shoulders. Now, he's kind of reflected that he's learning the game himself. So he's obviously new to managerial. This is his first appointment. But it is quite clear that I feel like he's almost overprotecting certain players. And it'll be interesting to see the coming few episodes, whether that starts to boil over or whether that pressure is kind of telling it in a different way. Another point that I've just put down here as notes, Aubameyang as captain. And I don't know if it's clever editing here, but he's not very vocal. I expected, someone of that kind of ilk. You see Ramsdale, for example, when he comes in, he's very vocal. Even when they lost 4-0 against Liverpool, he's like really frustrated, not just at himself, but at the team. He's kind of trying to say, look, where's the balls? What is people doing? And it was interesting seeing the reaction of Arteta after that game, because what we saw was what he did on the pitch with Klopp, right? And I don't know about you, I don't know whether his comments about him freezing on the occasion really helped on that particular match. But it's an interesting one. But ultimately, all I will say quickly before I get you to pass your commentary, I feel like you can see the players, they need sometimes nurturing. They need a shoulder over them just to say, you can do it. And it's interesting that they've got that specific coach there, I've forgotten his name, but is developing their mindset. Carlos. And he's obviously trying to get them to get over the mental barriers that they seem to have, especially Tavares, as you've said. You could see he kind of, after that Liverpool match, he sinks to his knees, really. He's just like sodden. But what about you on Arteta?
Yeah, I think it's fascinating because it's like all part of that Arsenal project, which is tied in together, a young team growing alongside a young coach. And I think there's been some rough times and there will be some rough times still. Yeah. But I think we really nailed that appointment. I think we don't have, he is so, you can see the players absolutely love him. The players listen to everything he says. I think the players that didn't are now gone. And I think that's something he's done very well. I think I think the story about him freezing at Anfield, I thought it was really interesting because I remember the game and he did. I remember what happened. I thought it was interesting. I thought it was very clever. I think, look, we were always going to lose to Liverpool at Anfield. It was never going to be anything else. Yeah. I think what the benefits of that would be long term when the player's like, well, I'm not afraid to tell him that I'm struggling now, because he stood in front of all of us and said, I completely shat my pants on the world stage and didn't move for 15 minutes. I think the benefits of that speech are long term rather than short term. I think I've been really impressed by him, but I'm bound to say that I'm an Arsenal fan. Although I know plenty of Arsenal fans who are still Arteta out and convinced that the documentary but I think we'll go more in depth on that over some special episodes. I think we should quickly round up the rest of the Premier League.
Yes,
let's preview a little bit, and then we can jump to Italy.
Yes, right? Exactly. Yes. So Man City, great start. Kind of expected, but what did we make of Haaland?
The guy's pace. I forgot how quick he is. I forgot how quick he is. When he that second where he breaks into that first stride of running, the acceleration is insane. And he's so huge. I was just watching, I was like, it just reminded me again of what a freak of nature he is. We're going to see that Kevin De Bruyne assist Haaland goal a lot this year. I think I'm just going to save it in my drafts constantly, like goal City, assist De Bruyne, because it's going to be every game. I think West Ham were massively disappointing. I think they had like 10% possession first half, just properly didn't turn up. City just could not, West Ham just could not get the ball. But yeah, Man City look pretty impressive. But the team that really impressed me this weekend, I didn't expect it, was Fulham.
Yes,
looking like
Mitrovic.
2 goals, and Trent exposed at the back post again. Something else I might save in the drafts folder as Trent exposed at the back post
again.
But I think Fulham were really impressive, and not only did they score 2 against Liverpool, but I've not seen a team do that many tricks and flicks in a long time. They were doing little showboating, like the moment where Mitrovic beats Van Dijk and Henderson in one move. I think there was a lot of showboating from Fulham, and I am, even if you get relegated, I'm all for that. I loved seeing a team that would seem to be having a bit of fun whilst taking on one of the best teams in the country.
I was really taken aback by Fulham. I thought they were really expansive. I mean, you kind of expect it with Silva in charge. He's not one to kind of park the bus as such, but he is kind of about philosophies. I was a bit worried about the fact that they hadn't signed as many players. I mean, I know Palhinha from Sporting Lisbon is going to be a good player for them, but it's just
Shane Duffy. Don't forget Shane Duffy.
Let's not forget about him. And they've also taken off Bernd Leno off your hands as well. So it's interesting. There's bad vibes about the fan base at the moment, and that's around their pricing. It's been highlighted by the likes of Archie Rintup. But just in general, I thought that might have caused a bit of a toxic atmosphere at Fulham, but it certainly hasn't affected the players. So fair play.
I can't imagine Craven Cottage being like a cauldron. I can't really imagine it being
just old pensioners.
It's really uncomfortable here today. I don't know. Yeah, just the sound of the groan of middle class England. I don't know. It's quite as intimidating as
sipping their champagne.
Galatasaray, if you know what I mean. Yeah, I think it was really. But I think the problem with when Fulham came up last time was that they just bought entirely new players. And I think here at least Marco Silva's tried to stick to the squad and be like, we know how to play with each other. We have a system inbuilt here. We're ready to go. Whereas, and check this for a segue, a team that I did worry for because they've done a Fulham is Nottingham Forest.
Well,
it was a difficult first game away to Newcastle, granted. A lot of the team that got promoted for them were all loans, as we've kind of recovered on the predictors, I think. And as Steve Cooper himself said, I have to build a squad in order for us to be able to stay up. I've not got that there. I thought they were massively disappointing against Newcastle. I think they really had nothing up front. I think Lingard didn't even realise he was on the pitch. I think that's going to be a theme throughout the season. I was quite worried for them because they're a team that a lot of people have said, I think they're going to be comfortable. And they'll get better as the season goes on. I have no doubt about that. But they need to get points on the board quickly. And I think their run of games is not the easiest. I think they've got Spurs coming up soon. So I was just a little bit worried for them. I don't know what your thoughts on the tricky trees were.
I think obviously they had a good run under Cooper, obviously trying to get to that stage where they got into the playoff mix and then eventually got promoted. But it was always going to be a tough ask of Nottingham Forest, especially as they had a number of loans come at an end at the end of last season, as well as Bryce Samba, the notorious goalkeeper who decided to leave them. Brilliant. But they had to make the replacements. They had to make a lot of changes. It's going to take time. Let's give them time. But I think they will get some points on the board sooner than we think. It's just going to be interesting to see who's the next signing because they seem to be unfinished in that department. But Rory, let's talk just briefly about Spurs as well. Incredible performance against Southampton, who I think probably everyone expected to do better this season again because they made some promising signs in the transfer market. But again, I mean, it just seems like basic errors they're doing right now. I think everyone's saying Brendan Rodgers is the first manager to go. I think it's Hassan Hutel here. I think he could be on his way if he doesn't get points on the board. And this is going to be a tight Premier League at this moment in time. But just word on Spurs, Kulusevski looks insanely good. Juventus fans are probably not looking forward to him again, but he looks 10 times the player he was at Juventus. And it's interesting that you just need a manager that puts a lot of trust in you, and you get performances like that. I mean, Allegri, that's all I can say.
Yeah, a manager that wants to attack. Can you imagine? Yeah. I think, that front three for Tottenham, and now the depth with Richarlison. Like, I think I said it in the predictive videos. I still think Richarlison will only turn up 4 or 5 games a season, but he's a very good option as cover. I think that front three can beat anyone on their day.
Yes,
with Conte at the helm, you never know what they can achieve genuinely. And I think I've said it before. They should be the team that push Man City and Liverpool the furthest. I think their squad is in better shape than Arsenal's at the moment. They've got a manager with more experience, and I think they should be pushing on. And this was a great start to the season. When Southampton got the first goal, there was hope for all of us. But then I think all they did was just piss them off, and they were like, "Right, okay, here we go," and they soon put it to bed. They've got a big test this weekend. I think we should move on to the previews. They've got a big test this weekend as they take on Chelsea. So Conte going back to his old haunting ground. And Tottenham have a horrendous record against Chelsea. I was looking in my notes, if I can find them. I think the last time they beat Chelsea was they've not beaten Chelsea in 11 games in the Premier League.
Wow.
Ali, Kane and Son scored the goals in a 3-1 win, I think it was. So their record against Chelsea is terrible. But from the Chelsea-Everton game, I think what we saw was they lacked a bit up front. And now they've got rid of Werner. That might help, maybe. But I think this could be. I think Tottenham could end the run here. I think they could actually do quite well at Chelsea.
Yeah, I can see that. And Chelsea, we have to say, I think there's a lot of worries going on at Stamford Bridge right now. The supporters are really frustrated with the lack of signings early on in this kind of transfer window. But now it's becoming a lot more evident. They may be becoming like a Man United where they're scrambling around for these buys. And it's going to take, again, some time for those players to settle in. So be interesting. But yeah, I fully expect Tottenham to get a result, whether that be a draw or whether that be a win. It'd be interesting to see if Spurs could get that elusive win they've been craving at Stamford Bridge. But yes, certainly I have a lot more high hopes for Spurs this season. That's for sure, Rory.
And so that game is on Sunday. That's one of the big part of Super Sunday, maybe. It's kind of a Super Sunday. The game before that is not Forest West Ham, which I feel like feels like a game from the 70s, if you know what I mean. I've not seen that fixture in a while, right? Yeah. But the other big games this weekend, should we look at what is now a massive game, Brentford versus Manchester United on the Saturday, late kickoff. Brentford getting a great comeback against Leicester. Ivan Toney against Lisandro Martinez. I'm quite excited to see. That could be a bit of a battle. But what do you make of Brentford and their chances this season and this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I thought they did some really good business with Aaron Hickey, for example. I thought, what he did at Bologna was incredible. But interestingly, they've added Damsgaard, who has been off the radar since the Euros because he had a bad injury at Sampdoria, didn't really get to play much last season. And please, whatever you do, do not look at his record at Sampdoria for last season because that's not an indicator of what he can do. But he is genuinely an exciting player. So fantasy football teams, if you're looking for someone that could be a surprise out of the bag, he could be the gem that you go for because I really am excited about him. I still think with Brentford, they either need to get one more striker in. I don't know who that is, but someone in the form of to challenge Toney or at least help him out for certain games. But also I think Toney needs to maybe change his game a bit, be a bit more selfish. That sounds really weird because that's probably against Brentford's philosophy. But they do need someone that can just stick up top and just bang in a few goals, even tap-ins. That's the kind of thing that I think will help them propel them further on this season. But wait and see. They made some interesting signings with the likes of Ben Mee as well. Fully expect on Saturday for Brentford to win this, probably 1 or 2-0.
Yeah, I think they're going to spring a not massive surprise there. I think
Yeah.
for people who aren't aware of Damsgaard, he's the one who scored the absolute banger against England in the semi-finals.
Yes, semi-finals.
He scored the rocket. Like, he's a player. I bought him in my Fanta Calcio last year, and he was injured the entire season. But he is a very, very, very good player. So I think Brentford have almost replaced Eriksen very cleverly there. The only other game I think we're going to talk about this weekend, maybe because we need to move on to Serie A, is the fact that it's going to be Arsenal. Of course it is. I'm going to the Emirates for the first time in about a year and a half, and I'm crazy excited. But there's always a but. I'm going to be in the Leicester end, so I'm going to have to sit on my hands the entire time. A colleague at the summer camp has got us all tickets. It's our final weekend of the camp, so to celebrate, we're having an all-dayer in London, and we're going to watch the mighty Arsenal against Leicester. I'm pretty excited because I feel like we could do them. Touch wood. I feel like we could do them.
Yeah, definitely. And we have to also just quickly say Liverpool versus Crystal Palace. That is an 80s classic, right? But
yeah.
In this kind of term, it'll be very interesting to see how Liverpool fare at home as well. Crystal Palace are normally one of those sides that can bring a bit of a surprise. They do need to get some points on the board. I don't know if it's going to be this weekend, though. I get a feeling that it's going to be Liverpool that win, unfortunately, here.
Yeah,
again,
Palace's
Salah or Nunes.
Palace's record against Liverpool is terrible. I was looking at the last game. So in the last 6 games, they've conceded 1 goal. Liverpool in the last 6 games against Palace, Liverpool have conceded 1 and scored 21. So I think Liverpool usually do quite well against Palace. So Palace with a rough start to the season. Arsenal and Liverpool, that is a rough start to the season. So I think Liverpool will get their first 3 points. Darwin Núñez looks a bit clumsy, but he's always in the right place at the right time. And exactly. I think he could be a hell of a signing for them and could push them on. But I think it's time to go to Italy.
Let's do it. So let's cover the first kind of game week of Serie A. And let's start by talking about the teams themselves, because we've got a few new teams in the mix, haven't we, Rory? But interestingly, we've had a lot of signings take place in Serie A, which has really strengthened some sides. So in particular, Roma. But let's go through it. So I think let's start off with the interesting side, and that is AC Monza. For those that don't know, obviously owned by a certain Berlusconi, and he's got his right-hand man, Giuliani, as well. So obviously he's got the foundations of AC Milan. That's what he's aspired to. He's aspired to the derby with AC Milan, but he's brought in some incredible players along the way. I mean, it's incredible. Matteo Pessina, I did not see that happening, but he brought him in. Caprari from Verona, that's an interesting one. Sensi from Inter. Ranocchia, we have to say Ranocchia for those that remember from Hull City. But also
Serie A veteran Ranocchia.
But also goalkeeping wise, he's brought in Kragner from Calgary as well, who is
that is
a solid keeper.
That keeper was one that has been one of the best keepers in Serie A for years, and that is one team had to come and get him. And I think, like Tommy used to always say, Inter should be getting Cragno. Like, he was a great goalkeeper. I think it's huge for Monza. I think the Pessina deal and the Caprari deal, I think they're quite interesting because they're loans, and then if they stay up, they become permanent. So it's kind of there's the mandatory future fee in FM terms if they stay up. So some interesting moves there. I think Sensi, if they can keep him fit, that could be massive. Because I remember when he did play for Inter, again, when he was fit, one of the most technical, like quick feet, like really enjoyable player to watch, but very technically incredible. I think, again, without injuries, he would have been in the Italy squad at the Euros. I have no doubt. So that's a huge signing for them. Milan have got 3 teams, basically, which is a bit crazy. Like, Monza's only not even an hour away. So it's going to be... There's 3 extra derbies next year.
That's incredible. And you've got some games to watch now for once, Rory. But one quick word. Marlon, he's a defender that's been brought in from Shakhtar on loan, previously from Sassuolo as well. Interesting player. I think, obviously, people should just keep an eye on his progress this season because I think he could be a gem. Like Shakhtar, unfortunately, due to the war, they've had to get rid of certain players on loan. He could be one to look out for. But also, it wouldn't be drama without Berlusconi in charge of a team, and potentially they might be trying to bring in Wanda and Mario Icardi to the club. What's your
Good
thoughts on
luck
that?
to them. Good luck. I think if anyone can manage him, it would be Berlusconi. He had some real characters in that Milan squad in the decades that he owned that club. I think if anyone could manage him, maybe it would be Berlusconi. We will have to see. It would be great to see Icardi back in Serie A. To be fair, it's nothing but box office, right? It's nothing but box office.
No, Bonga fan.
Well, exactly. But also down at the bottom of the table, I wanted to quickly say Cremonese have also pulled off a beautiful bit of business, bringing in Dressers, who is the striker from Feyenoord. He played in the conference final against Roma last year. Before his move in the Belgian league, in the Dutch league, he'd already got 3 goals and an assist in 4 games. So he was a player in the final that really impressed me. As I watched their run to the final, I thought this striker's definitely, kind of good in the air, strong, quick, decent finisher. I think for Cremonese, that's quite a big coup, really. Like, for a team coming up from Serie B to get a player who was just in the European final, I think that's a pretty crazy move. There's a lot of the teams at the bottom coming straight into Serie A with a real intent, which I think we've not seen in Serie A for years. A lot of the teams just came up and were like, okay, cross your fingers, like Crotone and Parma and players like that. And Salernitana really crossed their fingers and it worked out. But I think a lot of those teams, they leave Serie A and you see them again in Serie D. And I think a lot of teams now in Serie B, as we've seen with Fabregas moving to Como, there's a bit more infrastructure in that league now. There's a bit more money washing around in that league. And some of the teams are coming up a bit more prepared. So I think Cremonese could pull off a few surprises. They've also been a team that have been pushing for promotion for years. They lost that in the playoffs year after year and were always the better team. Like classic kind of, they'd be third until the last day and then fall into the playoffs. You know what I mean? They've always been there, and now I really hope they take their chance because they're a good team to watch. And I think that signing Dressers could be huge for them.
Let's mix it up. Let's go back to the top of the table. I'm really excited by Roma this season. I don't know about you, Ruairi, but the signings they've brought in so far, just incredible. So if I just talk about them, we've got Dybala, we've got Wijnaldum, we've got Matic, who's probably nothing, but we've got Çelik, who is the right back, Turkish right back at Lille. It looks like he's gone to his previous side, Benfica, Sevilla. He's been brought in as a backup goalkeeper by the look of things, but they still want Belotti as well, which I'm surprised Belotti is still without a club. But again, if they're not in the top 4 by the end of the season, Mourinho really needs to be moved on because I can't understand how they haven't achieved it, but they will. I can certainly see them being in the top 4 mix. But should they be considered as Scudetto potentials? What do you think?
I think there's an outside chance. Now, regular listeners to the pod will know that I have a leaning towards Roma, and I do really, really always hope they do very well. But I think if there's a league that a 38-year-old Nemanja Matic can do well in, it's Serie A. If there's a league that a Wijnaldum can have a remontada in, it's Serie A. I think Mourinho knows the players, what they can do and how the league works. He won it a lot with Inter. He obviously won the treble. I think Serie A hasn't changed that much since he's been there. I think he's got a team there and a club there that are 1,000% behind him. Him winning the cup last year was huge. I think that will get him so much more support. I think we're seeing a change in Mourinho, like we've said before, that this is a long-term project for him. This is not 3 years and gone. This is something that he wants to do. He wants to build something there. I think for all those signings for no money, I was looking at their transfer record. They're 30 million in the green because they've managed to sell Pau Lopez under. They've basically sold all their players to Marseille, but they've got the money and they're in the green. And for Mourinho to be to be in the green after a transfer window, that must be the first time, I swear. But he's built a hell of a team. We all saw the videos of Dybala being received in Rome. You can see how much it means to that city. And how Belotti has not been snapped up yet. Manchester United, you should be looking at Belotti. You need a striker.
Yeah, not Arnautovic.
He will get you goals. He's 28 years old. He looks older than he is, right? He's still pretty young. He's in his peak. How he's not been snapped up yet is unbelievable. He's consistently in the top goal scorers charts at Serie A. And that is in a Torino team that never do anything. They're always 14th, 15th, 12th. And he's still consistently gets goals. I think put him in a team that actually has quality around it. You think of that front three now for Roma, between like Dybala, Pellegrini, and Abraham, and then you've got Belotti to come off the bench. That is some serious attacking talent. I think there's a hell of a squad there, and again, Mourinho has done it very, very quickly.
Yeah, you only have to see that preseason friendly against Shakhtar where they did that move. I mean, that was just beautiful. That was just a sign of what could be happening this season at Roma. So if there's anyone that you should keep an eye out on, it's definitely Roma this season. Let's talk about the club that we don't like talking about very often, and that's Juventus, Ruairi. Obviously, they brought in some decent players, it has to be said, and somehow they've managed to shift a lot of players that they didn't want there as well. But let's talk about the players that they have got. So Di Maria they brought in from a free transfer at PSG, seems like a sensible bit of business. Bremer, who they brought in from their rivals Torino, that is going to be interesting now because he's probably a bit more of a laid-back centre-back that is allowed, if he's given the freedom, he'll roam forward and create attacks. But I don't know if he'll necessarily have that.
He won't be doing that anymore.
No,
that's going
to
be
for sure.
Beat out of his game. Yeah.
And then Paul Pogba, who has now famously got that injury, so he'll be out for 4 to 5 months, potentially not even making the World Cup, which everyone could see happening. But interestingly, they still want some new players. They want Filip Kostic from Frankfurt, who is a very good player. Interestingly, they're kind of talking about him being a left back, which is not a position they really need to be playing him at, but that's typical Allegri style football there. And it looks like they're the sole runners for Memphis Depay as well. I wanted to just say to you, though, Ruairi, it seems like Vlahovic in preseason doesn't look like the same Vlahovic that we know of Fiorentina. Is that just because he's been beaten by Allegri, or what is it?
I think his agent, and I know I'm an Arsenal fan, but his agent made the wrong choice. You've taken one of the most promising strikers in world football and taken him to a manager who has zero interest in attacking. I think we are not going to see Vlahovic develop at that club. We're going to see him stagnate. We're going to see him get bored. We're going to see him get petulant. I think it's not like, I know it's kind of early days. He did okay since he got to Juve. I think he would have had a better ending to the season at Fiorentina under Italiano. I think he would have had a much better ending. I think with Allegri ball, he was never going to do well. It's a shame. It's really a shame to see it because he is such a great player. I think, look, he could still go on and win Capocannoniere next year, and Juventus could win the Scudetto because it's Juventus. You never know what's going to happen, right? They're usually up there. I think they've had some very intelligent business. I think the fact that De Ligt is gone, he wasn't that impressive at Juve. I think he needed a fresh start. They needed a fresh start. For them to get Bremer when it looked so tied out, it looked like it was done for him to go to Inter. For them to come through and go, we've got him, I think that's huge. Zakaria, when they signed him in January last year, was massive for their midfield. Depay would be great in that league. You know he'd kill Serie A. And I think, again, Serie A is the league for old age pensioners, so you know that Di Maria is going to tear it up, right? Di Maria is going to have a hell of a season. He's still criminally underrated. I think people remember that time at Manchester United where no player gets better at Manchester United. No players get better there. And I think Di Maria is still judged for that. He is an incredible player. I think that's a huge signing. And unfortunately, if Allegri decides to utilise some of the attacking talent he's brought in, we could see them challenging for the Scudetto. I think the biggest problem they have is that they've not moved on from Allegri. I think that's
it. And I'm going to make a bold prediction right now and say, if Juventus are not in the top 4 by Christmas, I could see Allegri being moved on.
The credit for those 9 Scudetto or Scudetti in a row, whatever it was, is running out and has run out already. I think the fans have kind of seen that football has moved on beyond him. It's not been impressive, has it? It's not been impressive.
No. Let's move on, mate, because we've got a lot of these teams to still crack
I know, we can't squeeze them in here.
Napoli, interesting. De Laurentiis is stealing the headlines because he doesn't want Africans in his team. We know because he wants to have a waiver that basically says they can't represent their nations in the AFCON, which is absolutely fucking ridiculous. I'm going to put that on record. I don't care if anyone shoots me down for that. But
he was also talking about a United in the same speech. He went from that to a United, European and American army fighting against China and Russia. Like, the guy's insane. I think don't take anything he says too seriously. The Napoli fans don't really like him that much either.
No, exactly. But let's talk about their signings. They've got the Korean, is it Min Jao Kim from Fenerbahce? Interesting player. Leo Oscar, who they bought in from Brighton. And the interesting one is one to keep an eye out, because I think he's a player that's not just for this season, he's more for the following seasons, and that's the Georgian wonder kids.
I want to see how you're going to pronounce this. I want to see how you're going to pronounce it.
Kavitsa Krashashkeli. But yeah, probably ruined his surname. But yeah, interesting kid, because he comes in with a lot of hype. Hopefully he's more Georgi Konkladze than Tamuri Kutspaya. But
this kid,
he's interesting. And just before I let you talk, Rory, Raspadori looks like he's coming from Sassuolo. Interesting blend of player that I think will fit the ethos down there. But my worry is Koulibaly's gone. They've a lot of vocal players have left as well, like the likes of Mertens, which we'll talk about later. And obviously, it seems like a certain player, guy by the name of Fabian Ruiz, is going to PSG as well. So I'm not actually that confident about Napoli's opportunities this season. I don't think they'll repeat what they did last season, unfortunately. And Osimhen, that's another player that Man United should be trying to sign. But yeah, he won't go there. But more importantly, where do we think Napoli will end up, Rory?
I think they could do okay. You've got Spalletti, so I think you're always going to get top four. That's what Spalletti gives you. He gives you top four. And I think Napoli will be fine. I think the player they brought in, the centre back from Fenerbahce, the South Korean guy, I'm terrible with names. His profile, I was watching him today. He's a big old boy. He's a big boy. But what I was really impressed with was technically with his feet, he was unbelievable. His passing range is incredible. He's able to beat a man, those progressive runs. I was really, I think he's kind of, from what I've seen, obviously the step up from Turkish Super League to Serie A is going to be a bit of a big step up, but I think he fits the profile of Koulibaly, and that could be some very, very clever recruitment. I was really, really excited by him, and he did Gangnam Style in his initiation song, right? Which I think shows a fantastic level of self-awareness. Give the crowd what they want. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So I was really impressed with that. But the Georgian guy, that obviously is going to be a football manager. But he has been on Football Manager. He is unbelievable. So I sat and watched him today as a bit of research. I was like, right, let's see what this kid's about. Now, obviously, the Georgian League and the Russian Premier League that he was in before that, again, not the level of Serie A. The guy is only 21. So as you said, it's a signing for the future. But my God, he's exciting. He can, long range goals with his left and right foot. Again, able to beat a man. I think they say press resistant in the football hipster community. He's really able to kind of avoid that press, and also very good at pressing himself. For an attacking midfielder, really not afraid to stick a foot in and get a tackle in, win the ball back. I was just really impressed by him, and I thought, thank God this wonder kid I saw on Football Manager looks like he's a wonder kid. I mean, it's been a big summer for Football Manager wonder kids, with Sesko looking like moving, Adeyemi moving.
Yes.
So for this kid as well, I'm like, oh yeah, they keep nailing it. So I'm happy that he's gone to Napoli. I think it's a really a place that he could thrive.
Definitely.
So he's kind of my player to keep an eye on in Serie A this year, and he's someone. None of the boys I play Fantaculture with listen to this, apart from Tommy. Hopefully, he's one of the players that I am definitely going to be chasing, because I think he's going to get a lot of minutes, and I think he could be really good. Yeah,
definitely. Let's move on to Milan then. Obviously, Inter have done some big business, but they won't have a sponsor across their shirts this summer or going into the season potentially. But they have got an interesting signing by the likes of Christian Aslani, for example, Mkhitaryan, who they got in from a free from Roma. Bellanova, who they bought in from Calgary. Again, interesting right back. I don't think he'll get a lot of game time, but again, very good player. And Onana, and obviously Lukaku. They bought him back from a loan spell.
I absolutely finessed Chelsea for £100 million.
They are the experts. That's all I can say. But yeah, what do we think of Inter's chances? Because I think they'll be challenging again, but do we think they are Scudetto worthy?
I think they could push because I think as good as Milan were last year, they weren't that good. I think Inter weren't a million miles away from it. Like it came down to the last match day. I think Inter with Lukaku last year probably win the league. So I think they've improved their team. There's no there's no doubt beyond that. The goalkeeper situation needed addressing. Onana, it looks like he was a bit rusty from the drugs ban, but it seems like he's starting to get his form back. His distribution is much better than Handanovic, which is massive. I think he's just an all-round better keeper. He's younger. Handanovic, in his day, was one of the best keepers in the world, but his day is gone. I think the goalkeeper situation was huge. I think they've replaced key positions. And another one that's massive is Aslani. Now, he's 20, 21 years old, I want to say, very young. Only played half a season at Empoli, but been very good in that half a season. And he seems to be the Brozovic backup. And I think what the issue has been for Inter is that when Brozovic is tired, they can't play anyone else. And he's so key to how they play. So I think if they can get another player that's able to come in, just in the games against the likes of Salernitana, teams like that, just to give Brozovic a rest so that when it comes to playing Juventus and Milan and Roma, he's not blowing out of his arse. Like, Brozovic is so key to that team. I think Aslani could be massively key just in being backup for him and being another option because they've had no one else to run to. I think Vidal and Sanchez have now gone. Bringing in Mkhitaryan is massive. He had a great season with Roma. And as we've discussed, old people do really well in Serie A. And we get to see the Lukaku-Lautaro partnership again, which was so good under Conte, and we've not seen it under Inzaghi. So I think it'll be really interesting to see if he can get that partnership back again because they were frightening at times. They're understanding, and they're obviously best friends off the pitch. I think that makes a big difference. It could be really exciting to see them again. It could be challenge. They have to be challenging again. They have to be. Yeah,
exactly. AC Milan, they haven't made a huge amount of signings, but the ones they have brought in seem like replacements or potentially for the future. So we're talking about Diderik Origi, and they've also brought in an interesting player, Charles de Ketelaere from Club Brugge, who is a very, very talented player, possibly a bit raw. I think there's a worry that obviously if he goes the same way as a Krzysztof Piątek or those other number 9s they had at the club, that he might not, go to the potential that we know he could deliver. But also they've got obviously Zlatan for another season. Florenzi's permanent now.
Have they still got Giroud?
They have got Giroud. So they've got the core elements of their squad. Obviously, they tried to go for Renato Sanchez. He decided, or maybe his agent decided to go to PSG. We don't know that one. But obviously, there's been talked about Sandro Tonali even going to potentially Arsenal, which is weird for me.
Won't happen. I can't see that happening. We don't sign Italians.
What's your thoughts on AC? Do we think they're strong enough? Because I feel like, yes, they've got the core elements of the teams, but all the other teams have bulked up their squads. They are a better quality than what they were last season. I do fear with AC Milan, they might not be in the top 2. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't think they retain the Scudetto. I think it was so close last year, and that title almost came as a surprise. I think Milan fans, if they were honest with themselves, would be like, they were surprised they won the league last year, right? And I think most people were surprised. So I think, as you're right, Juve have strengthened, Inter have strengthened, Roma have strengthened, Milan have put in more building blocks, I think. Charles de Ketelaere, or however you say it, another FM Wonder Kid, big summer for FM Wonder Kids. He's weird. He doesn't really look like a striker. I thought he was attacking.
He's like a Peter Crouch style player. He just doesn't look like he should fit there, but he does. He does
everything. And he's again great with his feet. Like late runs into the box, able to beat a man. Great passing range. Like a lot of assists. Like really creative player, exciting player. But he does not look like a striker. I thought he was a number 10, but he's a striker.
No, he's a striker.
So it'll be interesting to see how many opportunities he gets. I think we could see kind of him take quite a major role and have the OAPs on the bench as backup, if you know what I mean. Like if they're not winning in a game, okay, take him off and bring on Giroud or bring on Zlatan or bring on the Origi. Like I think, or maybe we see Origi getting actually a regular starting spot in the team for once and see how he handles that. It could be interesting. But I think Milan, Yeah, they've stayed where they are. I think they've stayed where they are, but it'll be interesting to see. I think they're much more sensible than they used to be in the past, and having Paolo Maldini in the director of football or sporting director's box has been an absolute masterstroke for them. Like, their business just makes so much more sense.
Yeah,
I think we
definitely
will see them competing kind of long term rather than like a flash in the pan. Yeah.
Exactly, and Maldini's doing a fantastic job in bringing that wage bill down. But finally, we're going to talk about Fiorentina, because I wanted to leave this till last because I think their business has gone under the radar to an extent.
Yeah.
So they decided against signing the goal machine that is Krzysztof Piątek. He is back at Hertha Berlin, but
just to keep Hertha up another season.
And just to mention another Polish player for my benefit, but Luka Jovic, who I am just so surprised. He's another name that I'm surprised more teams didn't go for him, but Fiorentina have. That is an incredible bit of business. They've got Mandragora from Juventus.
That's huge.
Pierluigi Golini, the goalkeeper that was at Spurs on loan at Atalanta, but he's now at Fiorentina. And interestingly, Dodo, who is the right back, another FM wonder kid from Shakhtar. He should be an interesting player. Fiorentina, I'll be very interested to see how they progress this season, because I think, again, they're another side that could be challenging. I don't think they'll be top 4, but I think they'll be top 6 this time around. What's your thoughts, Rory?
Yeah, well, we saw last year, as they've got the most exciting Italian coach at the moment as well in charge of Vincenzo Italiano, and we saw them playing fantastic football last year. Even when Vlahovic went and everyone thought, okay, this is the time that they're going to fall apart, they kept that going and they got into Europe. Huge for Fiorentina for them to be in Europe, first time in a very long time. I think, the business they've done is really impressive. Mandragora is a player who's been at Udinese on loan for a very long time from Juventus. I think that's the right guy, right? And he's really been very impressive in Serie A. I think Udinese will be gutted that Fiorentina beat them to him, to be fair. Luka Jovic, a player that got a big move a bit too soon, right? Had that one big year at Frankfurt and then got the move to Real Madrid. Obviously, just never worked. Fresh start for him in a city and a club that are going to absolutely adore him the second he starts putting balls in the back of the net. It's a team that consistently create great strikers. I think there's a lot to be excited about down in Florence. Vincenzo Italiano, he's just such a great coach. The football they play is fantastic. He did a great job with Spezia, and he's doing a great job with Fiorentina. Right,
just a quick roundup then, Rory, just to put you on the spot. Who do we think is going to be in the top 4 by the end of this season in Serie A, and who do you predict to be relegated from Serie A?
So I'm going to say top 4 because I feel like I've backed a lot of teams to be top 4 now, so I need to slim them down. I'm going to say, in no particular order, I'm going to say Inter, Milan, Roma and Juventus. Even though I've said Spalletti guarantees you top 4, I just realised Juventus exists. So I'm going to say top 5, maybe. Yeah. That's going to be my top 4. Yeah.
And what about the bottom 3?
I'm going to say, let me look at the table just so I remind me who we
got in that league.
I'm going to say Salernitana probably drop down. I'm going to say Sampdoria finally fall because I think they're a club in all types of trouble, and I'm going to say Spezia. So all the S's, Salernitana, Sampdoria, and Spezia. That's going to be my guess. What about you?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I think we've matched up there quite nicely. I think Lecce will be potentially in that mix for the relegation zone as well, but I would stick with that top 4 that you've given because, I can't see the other teams really challenging those other top 4 that you mentioned. So, I could definitely see, though, however, Fiorentina pushing for a 5th finish, maybe 6th finish. It depends on Napoli, personally. It depends where they want to be. And we haven't mentioned Atalanta as well. They're going to be there or thereabouts as well.
Good business. Adamola Lookman was pretty exciting.
Yes, exactly. And Edison for Salernitana as well. So very interesting. But Rory, we move on. We are treating our listeners and watchers because we have also got an interesting interview that myself and Tommy did. And this was back in June. So we did it with an interesting player. He's going to give us the insights about a player that has had his fair share in the lower leagues of England. And more interestingly, I had to educate Tommy about Accrington Stanley. So without further ado, I introduce you.
I couldn't resist.
You have to. Piero Mingoia. So, Rory, we got Tommy through. We managed to educate him on Accrington Stanley in the end, but it was great having Piero on, in particular, when he shared us his insights on AC Milan as well. That's his pure club as well. So, yeah, we'll have to bring on Piero for future episodes. But, Rory, that's been a fascinating episode. I've really enjoyed myself. But this is just the first episode.
I know, it's the start. We've got a long road ahead of us. We've got a whole season and a World Cup to squeeze in. It's a lot, guys. I hope you're ready to hear our voices, because there's going to be a lot of it over the next 9 months.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And we have to do the housekeeping bit as well, because the Monday night shows, that's not going to take place immediately, is it, Rory?
No, I'm kind of floating in between the UK and Italy for the next couple of weeks, so I'm not going to be settled again until September. So the Monday night live shows will come back on, I believe, the 5th of September is the Monday.
That's what
if
we're
not,
aiming for.
the Monday closest to that date. They'll be coming back. There may be some time changes, but we will keep you updated either.
Yes.
And we will see you there. But yeah, they will be coming in just after a bit of a break. I've had a very long summer, guys. Very long summer.
Definitely. And as I've had today, even on our Instagram account, I think a lot of you have been craving us, because we even had comments of, fucking hell, it's been far too long for you guys to be missing. So
It's good to hear,
exactly.
honestly, I love it.
So I'm going to sign out on this quote from the beloved Ian Holloway, and that is, I couldn't be more chuffed if I was a Badger at the start of mating season. And with that, we sign out. Thanks, guys, and we'll see you at the next episode.
See you later.